The reception was perfect. The venue overlooked the harbor. The string lights created a warm glow, and 200 guests laughed and celebrated. My husband, Marcus, and I had spent 18 months planning every detail, saving every penny to make this day exactly what we wanted. Then my father stood up to give his toast. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my daughter Sarah and her new husband, Marcus," Dad began, his voice carrying across the room. He had 3 glasses of champagne already. I could see it in his flushed face and hear it in his too loud voice. "You know, planning a wedding is expensive," he continued. "Very expensive. But when you're a father, you do what you have to do for your little girl. I paid for everything you see here tonight. Every detail. Because, well, let's be honest. Marcus's family couldn't afford this kind of celebration." The room went silent. 200 people stopped talking, stopped eating, stopped moving. I felt Marcus's hand tighten on mine under the table. They kept going, oblivious or uncaring. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Not everyone can be successful. But I'm glad I could give my daughter the wedding she deserves, even if it meant covering everything myself because the groom's side couldn't contribute. He raised his glass. "To Sarah and Marcus." A few people awkwardly clinked glasses. Most just sat there, frozen, unsure where to look. I looked at Marcus's parents across the room. His mother's face was pale. His father's jaw clenched. They were both retired teachers, hardworking people who'd raised 3 incredible kids on modest incomes. They'd offered to help with the wedding, but we politely declined because Marcus and I wanted to pay for it ourselves. I looked at my mother, sitting next to Dad. She was staring at her plate, embarrassed, but saying nothing. Then I looked at Marcus, my husband of 3 hours, the man I loved more than anything. The ER nurse who worked doubles to save lives and came home exhausted but still made me laugh. The man who'd worked 2 jobs while earning his nursing degree. The man who'd never asked anyone for anything. His face showed hurt, humiliation, and anger. I stood up. The room's attention shifted to me. I walked to where the DJ was set up and took the microphone. "Thank you for that, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to correct something, for the record for everyone here." Dad's smile faltered. "Marcus and I paid for this wedding ourselves. Every single dollar. The venue, the food, the flowers, the music, the dress, all of it. We saved for 18 months. We worked extra hours. We made sacrifices. But we did it together, as partners, because that's how we wanted to start our marriage." I looked directly at my father. Dad contributed exactly $0 to this wedding, not because we didn't invite him to, but because we chose not to accept anyone's money. We wanted this to be ours. The silence was deafening. But what's more important than the money is this. Dad just publicly humiliated my husband and his family by suggesting they're poor and couldn't afford to contribute. He implied that Marcus needed to be rescued by my successful father. None of that is true. Marcus stood and joined me. I handed him the microphone. "My parents are teachers," Marcus said quietly. "They dedicated their lives to educating kids. They're not wealthy, but they're rich in every way that matters. They offered to help with the wedding, and we said no because Sarah and I are adults who wanted to handle this ourselves." He looked at my father. "I don't need your money. I never did. What I needed was for my wife's father to treat me with respect on our wedding day. You failed." Marcus handed the microphone back to me. "We're going to continue celebrating with everyone who's here to support our marriage," I said, "not to witness false claims or public humiliation. If you're here for the right reasons, please stay. If not, we understand." I returned the microphone to the DJ, and Marcus and I sat back down. For about 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then Marcus's parents stood up and walked over to us. His mother hugged me tightly. His father shook Marcus's hand, pride evident on his face. Then my maid of honor stood and raised her glass. "To Sarah and Marcus, to partnerships built on respect and truth." Half the room stood and echoed the toast. My father remained seated, his face red with anger, embarrassment, or both. Over the next hour, the reception continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. People kept approaching our table to quietly apologize for Dad's behavior, to praise us for speaking up, to tell Marcus's parents how much they respected them. But 40 people left early, family members from Dad's side who didn't want to be part of the awkwardness or who felt loyalty to him overrode their support for us. My Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda left without saying goodbye. My cousin Amanda stopped by our table first, whispering, "I'm sorry, but we have to go. You understand. We didn't, but we nodded anyway. My parents left at 10 o'clock, 2 hours before the reception was supposed to end. Mom approached me first. Sarah, did you have to embarrass your father like that? In front of everyone? Did he have to lie about paying for my wedding? Did he have to insult Marcus's family? He'd been drinking. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. How many ways are there to interpret the groom's family is too poor? She had no answer. We're leaving. Your father is very upset. So is my husband. So am I. I hope you're happy with how this turned out. She left before I could respond. Despite everything, the rest of the reception was beautiful. The people who stayed were there for us. They danced, they celebrated, and they made speeches about love, partnership, and respect. Marcus and I had our first dance, cut the cake, and threw the bouquet. But there was a hollow space where my parents should have been. At midnight, as we were saying goodbye to the last guests, Marcus's mother pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, she said. It took courage to do what you did, to stand up for your husband, for us, for the truth. I'm sorry you had to hear that. What he said. Don't apologize for him. He said what he said. You corrected it. That's all we can control, how we respond. After everyone left, Marcus and I stayed to help pack up our personal items. We were exhausted, emotionally drained, but also oddly peaceful. We'd stood up for ourselves. We told the truth. We'd started our marriage with integrity. We got back to our apartment at 1 in the morning. We decided against a honeymoon right away. We couldn't afford it after paying for the wedding, and our work schedules didn't align. We planned something for later. I was taking off my jewelry when there was a knock at the door. Marcus looked at me, confused. Who would be here at 1 in the morning? I opened the door. My father stood there. He looked terrible. His tuxedo was rumpled, his eyes red and swollen. He'd been crying. He was holding something in his hands, a small photo album. Can I come in? Marcus appeared behind me. Sir, it's our wedding night. This isn't. Please, Dad said. I know I don't deserve it, but please. I let him in. He stood in our small living room, clutching the album like a lifeline. I've been driving around for 3 hours, he said. Couldn't go home. Couldn't face your mother. Just drove and thought about what I did. Neither Marcus nor I said anything. I brought this. He held out the album. I found it in the garage last week while looking for something else. Haven't opened it in years. I took it. Inside were photos from when I was little. Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Dad at my elementary school graduation. Dad helping me with a science project. Dad and me at father-daughter dances. You were my whole world, he said, his voice breaking. After your mother and I had you, everything I did was for you, to give you opportunities, to make sure you had more than I did growing up. Dad, let me finish, please. He wiped his eyes. I grew up poor, really poor. My father worked 3 jobs and we still struggled. I swore that when I had kids, they'd never know that feeling. So I worked hard, built a business, made money. And somewhere along the way, I started thinking money was the measure of everything. He looked at Marcus. When Sarah told me she was marrying you, I looked you up. Saw you were a nurse. Looked at average nurse salaries. Looked at your parents' careers. And I made a judgment. I decided you weren't good enough because you didn't make enough. Sir, Marcus started. I was wrong. Completely wrong. Tonight, when I stood up to give that toast, I convinced myself I was the hero. The generous father who'd given his daughter everything. I wanted people to see me as successful, as generous. I wanted credit. But you didn't pay for anything, I said quietly. I know, and that's the worst part. I lied because I wanted people to think I had. Because in my mind, a good father pays for his daughter's wedding. A successful man can afford to. And when you two insisted on paying for it yourselves, I felt diminished somehow, like I'd failed. He sat down heavily on our couch. So I lied, and in lying, I humiliated my daughter, my son-in-law, and his wonderful parents. I ruined your wedding reception. I put my ego ahead of your happiness. 40 people left because of what happened, I said. I know. Your Uncle Robert called me, yelled at me for 20 minutes about what an embarrassment I am. He's not wrong. Marcus sat down across from Dad. Why did you feel the need to put down my family? Even if you had paid, why say it that way? Dad looked at his hands. Because I'm insecure. Because I spent my whole life trying to prove I'm not the poor kid anymore. And I thought diminishing others would elevate me. It's inexcusable. Your parents are incredible people. They raised an incredible son. They did it with integrity and love. They don't need money to be successful. They already are. They are, Marcus agreed. I called them tonight, Dad said. Around 11, to apologize. Your father answered, Marcus. Do you know what he said? What? He said, I don't need your apology. Your daughter and my son need your respect. If you can give them that, we'll have no problem. If you can't, stay away from them. Dad smiled sadly. A better man than me, by far. We sat in silence for a moment. I can't undo tonight, Dad said finally. I can't take back what I said in front of 200 people. I can't give you back the reception you deserved. But I can tell you that I'm sorry, deeply, truly sorry, and I can promise to do better. What does better look like? I asked. It means respecting your choices, respecting Marcus, respecting his family. It means keeping my mouth shut about money and success and who can afford what. It means showing up with humility instead of ego. He stood up. It also means leaving you alone on your wedding night instead of making this all about me and my feelings. I'm sorry I came here. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did and that you were right to correct me publicly. I deserved that and worse. He walked to the door, then turned back. Marcus, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but I'm asking anyway. Give me a chance to be a better father-in-law, a better man. I can't promise I'll get it right immediately. Old habits, old insecurities, they run deep, but I promise I'll try. Marcus looked at me, then back at Dad. Sir, I don't hold grudges, but I also don't tolerate disrespect. You disrespected my parents, my wife, and me tonight. If you want a relationship going forward, it starts with genuine change, not just apologies. I understand. And if we have kids someday, they're never going to hear you talk about money as a measure of worth or hear you put people down for their career choices. That's non-negotiable. Agreed, completely. After Dad left, Marcus and I sat together on the couch. That was unexpected, he said. Everything about today was unexpected. Do you think he meant it? The apology? I think he meant it tonight. Whether he'll mean it in a month, in a year, that's the question. Marcus pulled me close. We stood up for ourselves today, for us, for my parents. That matters more than anything else. 40 people left. 160 stayed, and they stayed because they support us, not because they wanted free food and an open bar. We found out who really cares. That's valuable information. He was right. The people who'd stayed were the ones who mattered. The ones who'd left had shown us where their priorities were. How's this for a wedding night? I said. Public humiliation, family drama, and a 2 a.m. visit from my father. Marcus laughed. Well, it's memorable. Our kids are going to love this story. Are they? Sure. The day Mom publicly fact-checked Grandpa at her own wedding. It's a classic. I smiled despite everything. Think we'll laugh about this eventually? I think we'll laugh about it tomorrow. Right now, though, I'm exhausted. We went to bed as the sun was starting to rise. Our wedding day was over. It hadn't been perfect. It had been messy, complicated, and painful in parts. But it had also been honest. We'd stood up for ourselves. We defended each other. We'd started our marriage with truth instead of comfortable lies. And maybe that was more valuable than a perfect reception. The photo album Dad had brought sat on our coffee table. Evidence of a relationship that had been good once and might be good again if he did the work. We'd see. Time would tell if tonight's apology was real or just another performance. But regardless, Marcus and I had each other. We had the truth. We had the 160 people who'd stayed. And we had a marriage built on respect, partnership, and the courage to speak up when it mattered. Even if it meant correcting your own father in front of 200 wedding guests.